Hey, everybody. This young lady that is standing next to me is somebody that I've only just met. So I'm not going to do a great job of introducing her, other than what I do want to say is this. I am so glad that Brad brought her in, because without her being here, we were just a bunch of old white guys talking to all of you. And we have not had adequate representation of all of our population. So please help me welcome Cassandra Elwell.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, DaS Symposium. It is with great pleasure that I can be here to take you away from your delightful lunch and insightful conversations with colleagues to talk about balance sheets, market trends, CAP. I'm just kidding, everybody. It's not going to be the topic of today's conversation. At the end of this 15 to 20 minutes, it is my goal to open your eyes and get your mind blown at the real opportunity of impact investing and social enterprise. I'm going to be introducing you to some new terms you might not have heard of before. Before I begin with that, how many of you know what a social enterprise is? A few of you. What about impact investing and the real term as it was coined a few years ago in 2007? Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit of definitions here because I'll be talking about it quite a bit. So I could open up the presentation with all the loom and doom pictures of smokestacks and trash heaps and starving children, but I'm sure you've had enough of that to last you a lifetime. And I could talk about for hours the whole impact around capitalism and globalization and what the impact is to the marketplace when it comes to buying low and selling high, and what corruption might take place when you have shareholders requesting and requiring such high gains and short-term gains in particular. So the title of my presentation is actually The Sustainable Capital, Shifting the Focus from Short-Term Gains to Long-Term Impact. So we live in a time right now that is pretty phenomenal. I don't know if you realize this. There are things happening in the capital markets just in the last decade that is going to completely change the way the lives of generations to come are going to experience social enterprise and having business. So what we're experiencing right now is a co-evolution. Going once, going twice. Yay! So what we're experiencing is the co-evolution between the design of capital markets and the impact solutions for the long-term needs of our planet. It's a very serious time right now, and some really amazing things are happening, and I'm here to talk to you about them today. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction about myself, since Ken didn't really know me before today or before this last week when Brad got me to participate at DaS Symposium. It all started when I was in high school, actually. I was a terrible student, and I was on the verge of dropping out, found myself pregnant at the age of 15 years old. When I had my son, I chose to give him to an adoptive family with the impact that I would make a difference on this planet and not just be some teenage pregnancy statistic. So I managed to go to UCLA. I graduated as one of the youngest in my class just a few months after my 20th birthday. And I moved on to work for an amazing team, goodlife.com. I was one of the founding members. We were here to have a mission that plants trees for everybody who joins the website, as well as build the #1 LOHAS directory. I don't know if you know what LOHAS is. It's the Life of Health and Sustainability. So we had the #1 directory in Los Angeles for everything having to do with green, impact, sustainability, community building, you name it, that has to do with life of living in sustainable ways and sustainable means. And we did a great job, but we could not raise money to save our lives. We were under the impression that if we built it, the investors would come. If we built it, the money would come. But did it happen? No. And at the end of a year and a half, we had to close our doors. And I was so pissed that this is what happened when a good venture in 2009 was building such a great opportunity for the future that we couldn't bring in the money to sustain ourselves. So I got pissed off. I moved to Haiti right after the earthquake, and I started the Love in Haiti project, and I had a nonprofit out there, and it was fun, and I fulfilled my need to save the world and do good, and I worked hard. I got my hands dirty. I taught people how to do alternative green building solutions and permaculture. I built capacity. I was so great, and it was so wonderful. But while I was making all this difference in the world, I couldn't help but focus on my friends over in California, still trying to build their do-good, feel-good social enterprises. And this is 2010. This is a decade after the dot-com bubble. right? Hundreds of millions of dollars were going to these tech companies, and they weren't out to do good on the planet. Yeah, they were doing good things like, hey, swipe left, swipe right, and here's your next blind date to do God knows what with. And look, there's the Yo app that raised $1.5 million, where all it did was send a 2-letter text message to a friend of your choice. $1.5 million, everyone. It was ridiculous. So I came back from Haiti, and I got into the belly of the beast, and I joined an investment bank, a well-known investment bank, and I grew with the firm, and I saw hundreds of presenter material for investing. And my clients went out and raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and I learned what it is to raise money and why checks are written in the first place. Nothing to do with doing good in the planet. So I shifted my focus to getting these checks written for good with Aspire.capital. So today what I'm going to be talking to you about, like I mentioned, is what is impact investing and what is a social enterprise. If you defined yourself as a social enterprise, what are some labels and opportunities for you from a state standpoint to qualify yourself as a social enterprise, and how that could be a benefit, where social enterprise and impact investing has come to be and why, and where the supply and demand is from. Also, what to do when you want to raise money for a social enterprise, going over some challenges, and I'm going to give you some of the not neurolinguistic, but neurofinance approach to raising money that I have learned over the last 4 years with my investment bank. So impact investing, that is investing to generate a measurable societal or environmental impact alongside a financial return. It's socially responsible, and it's often serving as a guide or a driver for an investment strategy. Now, there are many organizations out there, banks that already have impact investing within their portfolios, and departments dedicated to impact investing. They're raising hundreds of millions of dollars in funds just for social enterprise. And let's define social enterprise real quick, very straightforward. So it's a commercial strategy to improve the human or the environmental well-being for society, and it's alongside a profit for an external shareholder. That's fine. Now, some of you might have heard of what venture philanthropy is. Has anybody heard of that? So that's a pretty older term that came out in the 1960s. Rockefeller came up with that. And then fast forward a couple decades, in 2007, in Bellagio, Italy, everybody got together that was in venture philanthropy, and they said, look, we don't want to just put our money where there's no financial return. It's not sustainable. We want to be able to provide some money. We want to see the business grow, and we want to grow with the business, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. Thus came impact investing. So if you have found yourself to be a part of a community or an organization that could be considered a social enterprise, Brad wanted to make sure that I informed you of a really great label that's out there called the B Corp. Anybody heard of a B Corp? Okay, good. So this is no new news. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Basically, you go on to this website, and you spend an hour and a half, you fill out an assessment application, and you sign a declaration of interdependence. You file some really minimal state fees, and you become a B Corp. And you will be among great company. So having this label is the same thing as having fair trade on coffee or USDA organic on milk. You're going to be among 1,600 other corporations across 48 countries and 130 different industries, also defining themselves as B Corp. And you probably recognize some of these logos up there, Etsy and Patagonia and Seventh Generation, and anybody who has some type of mission of doing good on the planet is considered a B Corp. Any questions on what a B Corp is? Okay.
What are the responsibilities?
So the responsibilities is to be a part of a regulatory process for accountability and transparency. So the GIIN, which is the Global Impact Investing Network, has some measurable criteria that you'd have to follow through with in order to be considered a B Corp. And it's an evolving, constantly evolving structure right now. And honestly, when I'm going out and raising money for social enterprise, which is what Aspire Capital does, having that label that we are a B Corp just means that we are extremely transparent, we have a mission, and our social impact is, if not more important than the financial return, but just as important as the financial return.
So who audits that?
I'm sorry?
Who
who audits that. So B Labs and B Corporations. blabs.com. Question?
Well, so somewhat similar question. My understanding is there are 4 states allow socially responsible corporations where there's actually a state auditing process that goes with this. This is kind of like the hidden business bureau or something. You get, I mean, it's not really an official kind of thing. It's not a legal form. Yeah.
No. So in Delaware, no, not in in Colorado and Delaware, they have Social Enterprise LLC, which is kind of like a B Corp. Yeah, and there's 2 other states as well. But B Corporation, you have, like I said, a network of other social enterprises that are coming together. And like I said, it's evolving, it's still growing, but it's still a really great opportunity by having that label. It's kind of, like I said, fair trade. It's good to have. It's a nice to have. It seems kind of silly, like you said, Hippie. I thought it was kind of silly doing this declaration of interdependence, right? Mix on words. But you still had that competitive edge and something to signify yourself as being out for a social impact. So what's causing this evolution of business, social enterprise business, and impact investing? Well, you can ask your company, your customers. Okay, so Deloitte has done a lot of studies on millennials. They're your current customers, or they're your soon-to-be customers, and they're also your future leaders of businesses, obviously. It's a rising generation, and 85% of them correlate their purchasing decisions as well as their recommendation of brands based on the social good a company is doing. Okay, it also has to do with purchasing product. Have you guys heard of this little California electric car company called Tesla? I don't have to tell you what's in the news. 325,000 pre-orders for their mass market electric car, right? They're out doing good in the planet, and customers want what they have to offer. Now you have also a workforce that's entering that are now desiring and craving to be a part of a purpose. They want to be a part of something that is more than just the financial gain of the business. So Deloitte just recently came out with this study, and it signified that this millennial group of individuals are now the larger part of the U.S. labor force. And they're no longer the leaders of tomorrow as they're gaining more and more of these senior positions. They're now the leaders of today. And what happens is they want less focus on the financial performance and more on other means of sustainability. So if it has to do with the internal sustainability of the business, how are we treating each other? How are we treating our customers? What are we doing about the environmental impact of the business? Do we have solar? Do we have recycling? Right? This is a pressing conversation amongst these millennials. And when they feel like the organizations put the financial performance before everything else, 20%, only 20% are considered to be staying there, are claiming that they're going to be sticking out with the company for the next 5 years or less. There's also individual investments that are growing day by day. So Fidelity Investments just did a survey that 40% of their high net worth individuals will have up to 20% of their investments in impact investing. Same with Merrill Lynch, 50% say they want most of their investments to go towards something that reflects their personal values. And then you have even Kleiner Perkins, which are coming out with fund after fund, hundreds of millions of dollars, that go to design for accelerating a mass market adoption of solutions for global climate improvements or enhancements to solve the crisis. Now, if we look at the market for impact capital or impact investing, currently it's about a $60 billion market. So the GIIN is estimating that in the next 10 years, it's going to grow to $2 trillion. That's over 3,300% growth. And just 10 years ago, it was a $250 million market. So it's growing exponentially. And as you can see, with customers demanding it, with the workforce demanding it, there's going to be more and more of these companies, these organizations, these technologies that are going to have to tie in some form of social enterprise with their business structure if this is what the demand of the workforce is and the customers are. So raising money today, there's a lot of difficulty in doing it. I mean, you're going after, if you're in the tech industry, I know you guys are mostly software here, you go to a VC and all they're looking for is the next unicorn. They're looking for something with a 10 or 10,000x return They're looking for something that could be the next Uber or the next Airbnb. So what I wanted to just leave you guys off with today is some similarities of, some approaches to going after this capital that I have found to work extremely well. So the first thing I recommend to people is to look for similarities between your mission and their thesis. If you go on their website and they have nothing on there about software, they have nothing on there about whatever industry you're in, whatever sector you're in, what you're doing, don't even bother going to them. It doesn't matter if you're out to save whoever you're out to save, they're not going to give you any time of day. Also, make sure that you have some form of an introduction. You know, a cold message through LinkedIn, it doesn't work these days. They're getting bombarded. So go onto LinkedIn, find out who you're connected to from them, right? And get that person to make an introduction. Doesn't matter if it's Aunt Sally. Just get someone to make that introduction because they're going to give you the much better response rate that you're going to need. Now, this is what differentiates it a little bit from what's been done in the past. Okay, the big idea, make it a problem that sounds massive and make it something that's humanized. Make it something that they can relate to. Hit it home for them. Because if it doesn't sound like something that's going to exist for a long time unless you're there to fix it, they're going to think someone else can do it. They're not going to put their time and energy to it. Also, when you get to talking about it, make sure you have incremental goals that are set for the impact that you're planning to make from a social, societal, environmental standpoint. Don't make it some big, I'm going to solve, blindness for 100,000 kids in Ethiopia. It needs to be incremental. In the next 5 months, I'm going to do this. In the next 13 months, I'm going to do this. In the next 5 years, it's going to be this. And make sure you have your data to relate to what you're trying to say. And try to do your modeling and your data analysis 10 or more years out. Because this is a long-term relationship. Impact investing is extremely long-term. This isn't a short-term, let's get someone to exit in the next 5 years or less. This is, let's have a lasting relationship, business partnership with this social enterprise. There are other types of funding vehicles if you're not going after some type of venture capital or a family office. You have crowdfunding, which I don't know if you all know about this yet, but equity crowdfunding, as of May of this year, thanks to the Jobs Act, is going to be available for anybody. You don't have to be an accredited investor anymore to invest your money in exchange for equity in a business, up to 10% of your income if you earn $100,000. Okay, if you earn $200,000 over the last few years or $300,000 collectively with your spouse, you can do up to $1 million, but if you don't earn that much, and this is a mass opportunity, you can invest into, a social enterprise, right? It doesn't take, as many Kickstarters or Indiegogo campaigns that you can look at. People like putting their money into things that are out to make a difference. We innately all want to do good on this planet. So Kickstarter, crowdfunder, there's some opportunities there. Once May rolls around, it's no longer donate some money in exchange for some product. You can actually do some exchange for equity. There's also obviously Angels, angel.co. If you've never heard of it, go on it. All the high net worths that are investing their personal capital into businesses as angel for seed rounds, that's early stage financing, they're on angel.co. It's good to have a lead investor before you go to angel.co. If you have a significant person or somebody you're already talking to, it's good to have them lined up as a lead investor before you go onto angel.co. It's a little bit more difficult to get in touch with people and to start a syndicate unless you have that going for you. There's also, like I said, tons of social impact funds, and there's a lot of social VC firms out there, and I wanted to show you guys a list of some for those of you who are thinking about raising money for some form of a social enterprise. I know Brad is talking about doing some of this work himself. I have a huge list here. This is from Cause Capitalism. I created a bit.ly link if you want to go to that bit.ly link and download it. It's just bit.ly/DAS-2016, and you'll have full access to this list. It's pretty long, and it has everybody from TBL to City Light, people who are providing capital in this space of social enterprise and impact investing. So that was my 20 minutes, and I thank you for the opportunity. Any questions? Yes?
Are there any data available? If you look at return on invested capital in the U.S., it's actually, it's actually been on a decline recently.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's it's still early, but if the return on capital comparison for the nonprofits or these kind of covers versus S&P or something like that, and is that data available anyplace?
So you're talking about the data that reflects how much capital is being invested right now versus
No, there
in
could be
public
an argument
markets?
that a socially responsible organization has returns that are very close to or the same as money that's invested, quote unquote, purely for the profits of the shareholders. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if anybody's tracked that so far.
Yeah, there's actually, here, let me tell you exactly who it is, because I just read an article on it yesterday. So obviously B Labs has a lot of that data, but GIIN, the Impact Investing Network, has a ton of that data. Impact Assets is another one. They're doing tons of research on the impact investing community and where it's fluctuating with the ebb and flow of the mass market, the other financial markets. And then, yeah, B Labs, GIIN, and Impact Assets would be the best ones to go to. Also, London has been kind of leading the way for social enterprise and impact investing, and they're doing some research in the US as well as in Australia, so you might want to look up what the UK is finding in their research as well.
I would like to point out, and here I am doing it again, what a wonderful speaker Cassandra is. I said, we're going to start at 12:20, you got 20 minutes, 12:40. Man, she nailed it almost to the second. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.